Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming this evening. The Good Governance Group, when we started to plan this candidates forum, we asked our members, who do you think should be the
Hold it up to your mouth.
We asked our members, Good Governance Group members, who should be the moderator? Who should we select and ask to be the moderator? And unanimously, everybody came back with Jerry Evans. And Jerry Evans is the quintessential small business owner making good in America. He started as a broadcaster, radio broadcaster. He went on to start purchasing radio stations. He now is the CEO and president of Evans Broadcast Group, which owns 5 radio stations. The leader, which is 99.1 talk radio. Jerry was on this morning from 6 to 8. He has a show, a call-in show, and it was hysterical. It was absolutely hysterical. He asked one of the callers, he asked them, he said, if you can answer this question, you'll get a $100 dinner at Rapscallion Restaurant in Reno. And he asked him, he said, who was the first Republican candidate to run for president? And the fellow thought for a minute and was silent. And then he answered with Harry Reid. And of course, Jerry, being the colorful guy that he is, took it from there and ran. He referred, throughout his show this morning, Jerry referred to Governor Brian Sandoval as Bernie Sanders. So I thought it was really good. So anyhow, we're very pleased to introduce to you and welcome back once again, Jerry Evans.
Thank you, Joe. I think Governor Sandoval earned that name, Bernie Sandoval. I thank you, Joe and Jim, and thanks to everyone in the Good Governance Group, and thanks to all of you, a lot of you, in this room tonight for investing your time to come out and find out about these candidates and where they stand. And we're recording this tonight too, so we'll be able to hold them accountable down the road if they do something different. They do that campaign conservatively and then vote the other way. And remember, if you don't think you have a good choice for a candidate, our governance here in Nevada and Douglas County allows for you to run for office. Okay, so, and some of these guys running tonight, some of these people running tonight have never run for office before. So, they're nervous, and we should treat them with respect. We shouldn't be like those people that we politely call politicians back in D.C. This is Douglas County, it's small, we're friends, we're neighbors, we should be friends. And we're going to run into each other in Walmart or the grocery store or Ahern Hardware, 1247 Highway 395, phone 26. So anyway, we'll have an opportunity to listen to them tonight, see where they stand, and then we'll be able to vote in good conscience and better informed than most of the people around here. Now think about this real quickly. The last time we did this, the President of the United States was Barack Hussein Obama, and Harry Reid ran the Senate. And I don't know about you, but now that those two buzzkills are gone, life seems better in Douglas County. The sun's shining. The economy is coming back. Businesses aren't struggling as hard as they used to stay in business. And we have a businessman in the White House. He may not be the perfect role model for some of us, but at least he's not going to tell a business person, if you've got a business, you didn't build that. Construction is up. Those of you with homes, you've probably seen your equity go up at least $100,000 in the last year or so, or at least I hope you have. And I hope you have because thanks to our representatives in Washington, D.C., because of what they've done, I think they call it fighting for Nevada. Each and every one of you tonight owes the federal government more than $100,000 than you did last year. If that's called fighting for Nevada, I'd say, please stop. Let somebody else give it a try. But you know, if you don't hold them accountable, if you don't challenge them on their votes, and you don't let them know what you think about that sort of thing, they're going to continue to do it. I guess good news though, in addition to owing that money, there will be border security, billions of dollars spent on border security, and a wall. It won't be for us. Mexico won't pay for it. It's for Jordan, Egypt, Tunisia, and Lebanon. And so again, you got to hold them accountable. But and one last little bit of good news though is that those people, those representatives, Dean Heller and Mark Amodei, they also gave $3.5 billion to the entity that studied Japanese quail to find out if they were more sexually promiscuous on cocaine. Might be time to start the debate. Okay, so, oh, and before we do, if you've got questions to submit, please pass them toward the center of the aisle, and Bob Baloo will come by and pick them up. Thank you. So we're going to start off with the candidates for sheriff. There are 4 of them, and remember, those of you, I know there are 2 of you that are active sheriffs. If you have pepper spray, aim it toward the audience. The questions can be there. We'll give you a minute to introduce yourself. We have a timer here, and then as we ask the questions, there'll be a 2-minute timer, and we will cut you off if you go much past 2 minutes and 3 seconds. And there's follow-up questions by me, or follow-up to your answers by me as well. So with that, let's go left to right. And you guys will share the mics. Left to right from the left. Stage left.
Okay, I get that. Good evening, my name is Dave Brady. I moved to Nevada, Douglas County 33 years ago after serving 8 years on the Redondo Beach Police Department, serving in different capacities as a patrolman, a DUI investigator, as well as a canine officer for the balance of the majority of my time. After moving to Nevada, I went to work for the Gaming Control Board as a financial investigator and eventually transitioned into the financial services industry where I became a certified financial planner and managed money for police associations throughout California and Nevada. During that same time, I served as treasurer and board member of one of the largest financial institutions in Douglas County, Greater Nevada Federal Credit Union. My education consists of an AA degree in criminal justice, a bachelor's degree in public affairs from USC, as well as a master's degree in public administration, also from USC. My parents placed a great emphasis on public service since they were part of the greatest generation. And in 1995, I was appointed to the Douglas County School Board, where I served for 9 years, 2 of those years as president. In 2005, I was appointed to the County Commission by Governor Kenny Gwinn, and served there for 6 years, 2 of which were as vice chairman. And concurrently, I served 15 years as a reserve deputy sheriff here in Douglas County. As a reserve. Those red lights make you nervous.
Who should you vote for as your next sheriff? Well, I would vote for someone like myself. My wife and I love this community and want to start a family here. I have the proven leadership, and I have never had my ethics or morals questioned. And I will hold my personnel accountable and always set the example. As I talk to the people of our community, the same comment comes up. They want change, and they are tired of the status quo. Well, I am that change. I know I wasn't born here, but that's not a bad thing. Out of all the places my wife and I could live, we chose here. Whose breath isn't still taken away by the beauty of Jones Peak? I know mine still is. A fresh set of eyes with new perspectives and ideas in a growing community is just what we need. I will be a constitutional sheriff and protect what you value most. I have the proven leadership, knowledge, and experience to bring the sheriff's office and Douglas County together. Don't forget to vote Dean Harris for sheriff 2018.
25 years ago, my wife Trace and I came to Douglas County to visit a friend, and we couldn't believe what a gem this place was. No traffic, no smog, we could see the stars at night. No gang graffiti on the walls was especially important to me. 23 years later, I'm the captain here at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. My name is Joe Duffy. I'm the current patrol captain for the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. I have worked every assignment for the last 28 years in Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and here in Douglas County Sheriff's Office. I worked the jail, patrol, detectives. I have worked SWAT, K-9. I've handled 2 different dogs. And I've handled 3 different divisions at the executive captain level. The jail, administration, and I'm the current patrol captain. I'm also a graduate of the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. I helped start our gang unit here. I'm also the captain of our SWAT team and our K-9 unit and our honor guard. As your sheriff, I promise to keep the place that I found here 25 years ago the same pristine place it is today. So I ask for your vote on June 12th. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. This is a neat experience for me, a great opportunity to introduce myself to you and to get to know you. My name is Dan Coverly. I grew up in Douglas County, graduated from high school in 1988, obtained my bachelor's degree in criminology from the University of New Mexico, and started my law enforcement career with the Albuquerque Police Department. My wife and I had our first daughter, Hannah. I knew I had to come back home to raise my family, and we returned back here, and I've been working for the Sheriff's Office for the last 21 years. I've worked in every division, held every rank, up to captain in the Sheriff's Office, been able to do some very neat things, and have been blessed to work for Sheriff Ron Perini for that whole time. One of the things that I think is very important is our relationship the Sheriff's Office has with the community. I think we have a great community, a good Sheriff's Office, and I will continue that strong relationship, enhance that, and work hard to keep your trust as Sheriff. Thank you very much.
Okay, keep the mic, Dan. Do you mind if I call you Dan or by your first names?
No, that's
By anything you like.
well, no, you can't.
What you work in? So we'll start with the questions, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer. We've got a timer on it, and you're welcome to stand or sit. First question: have you ever been subject to disciplinary action as a result of an on-the-job event, and if so, explain.
I think anyone that has worked over 2 decades in law enforcement has gotten in trouble and done things that they've been disciplined for or made mistakes. And I'm certainly not exempt from that. I think the issue that you're referring to and that you've made mention on your radio show is a lawsuit that I was involved in back in 2001. Actually, the incident happened in 2001. The lawsuit wasn't brought forward until 2004. I give you a little background on what happened. I was a patrol deputy working swing shift. Got a call to a domestic disturbance in the ranchos. Man and wife, girlfriend, boyfriend were having a physical altercation in the yard, and then the male subject got into a vehicle and left at a high rate of speed. The neighbors called it in, gave a description of the vehicle. The vehicle was located on the Washoe tribe. Tribal officers tried to stop it. He refused to stop and left the tribal property and then entered Douglas County, and where I ran into him. I chased him through the ranchos where he drove up onto sidewalks, putting myself, any citizens, the neighborhoods in danger. He crashed into a car, and my partner had caught up to me at that time. We had to break the window to get him out, cut the seatbelt, and handcuff him, and arrested him. A homeowner there videoed the incident, and in 2004, after I'd been promoted to detective, they started a lawsuit. The lawsuit was dealt with both internally and externally in the department. I was cleared of any wrongdoing of excessive force, and the county settled the suit. I was doing my job, doing the best that I can. Have a split second to make decisions and do what you think you need to do. The rest of us have a lifetime to be critical or to dissect that incident.
Okay,
So,
we'll get back to that if you want. And just to qualify this, we're a news talk station, we report the news. It wasn't me personally.
Back when I was a new sergeant, I had a guy that was just got off training for being a level 3 corner, so what we call an advanced corner. And he made some procedural mistakes on the case that he was working. And because of that, the lieutenant at the time gave him a written reprimand, and I happened to be his sergeant, and I received a written reprimand for not more closely watching him. I've had exemplary performance with the LA County Sheriff's Department and here as well, other than that one incident. That's the only thing in my personnel file.
Dean, this doesn't really apply to you, but
No, I have
anything
not.
about your military?
I was actually awarded the Meritorious Service Medal for my exemplary leadership and service for 20 years of military service.
How do you follow that? Reminds me of going to confession. During my 25 years in law enforcement, I had no use of force violations, despite working with a very aggressive, very tough canine that was just great to work with on the street, named the nickname Crocodile. I did have 2 written complaints. One complaint was that I got called out to a scene for excessive noise, talked to the individual, he's very cooperative. Somehow the discussion migrated into the police department, and I referred to a department head in a negative way. Unfortunately, I didn't know I was talking to her boyfriend. And the second complaint I got, believe it or not, was when I was on vacation. How do you do this? So I went on vacation. One of the other canine, one of my canine partners, who really enjoyed my dog and was jealous that I had Donner, he took care of him for me. So he decided arbitrarily, at the time, he was going to take my dog out on patrol, which is highly unusual and definitely not standard protocol. The SWAT, or the canine commander, found out about it, and he just took both of us to task and said, both get a written reprimand. And fortunately, the dog, during that time on patrol, did his job and didn't create any problems. But I can say that I do have some citations in my jacket, if you will, for exemplary service with my canine handling, dealing with gangs, and a number of high-level felony assaults, investigations, and arrests. Thank you.
What are your thoughts on the structure or restructuring of upper echelon of administration in the Sheriff's Department? Dan Coverly.
the Sheriff's Office is a fairly small department, technically medium-sized by national standards. I don't think that we are top-heavy compared to other agencies in this area, that we, to the same side. A lot of people don't understand why we go from sergeant to captain. I honestly don't understand that either, in the sense that that was done long before I promoted to captain. The explanation I was given was that the lieutenants were doing what they considered to be a captain's or a commander's job. The sergeants or watch commanders were doing a lot of what they considered to be a lieutenant's job, and so they reclassified the lieutenant's position to a captain. I think that you have to have a division commander in each division. We have 4 divisions, and so you would need one for the jail, patrol, investigations, and administration. I think it's important that you have an under-sheriff, a second in command, and the sheriff. So I don't foresee changing any of that. There may be some changes in the assignments assigned to each captain. Every captain, aside from their division, supervisors other departments, or not departments, but assignments within the Sheriff's Office. And that gets shuffled around from time to time. I don't know how we would restructure it without adding personnel. And once you add a executive position, then you're going to most likely take someone off of the street, and I don't want to do that. So I think the way we have it is a good way and probably the best way.
Thank you.
So like Dan said, we have 4 divisions: patrol, detectives, administration, and the jail. Those all require a division commander. Now, whether you call them lieutenant or captain or whatever else, you need somebody, a manager in charge of those divisions. So that's not going to change. That can't change. We have to have that. The thing that I see as a need for us is, some of you heard me speak before, that our #1 call for service is traffic-related incidents. We had 11,000 calls, traffic-related incidents in Douglas County. By far the biggest call, most calls we've had. So years ago, we took away some of our patrol deputies to make them traffic deputies. And we actually took 6 away from the patrol division. And I find that because we have such a need for traffic-related incidents and issues, we are constantly relying on patrol to backfill those traffic positions, and I can never keep those traffic positions filled. So what I'd like to do is add a sergeant that's a traffic sergeant and also a relief sergeant for some of our sergeants to take time off. I have 6 sergeants in patrol, and they get to take time off. When one takes time off, we have to put an acting deputy in there, which is fine because it prepares them for the position of sergeant down the road. But I would like to fill that position with a vacation relief sergeant, and his double duty would be a traffic sergeant, and add a couple more deputies to backfill from the constant pull from patrol that I'm putting patrol deputies in traffic deputy positions, and they have to always go back to patrol because they can't work traffic. So I'm sure everybody drives down the road and they see, probably coming here, they saw somebody on their cell phone, right? Texting or driving on their phone. That's a huge problem here. Speeders, another big complaint. DUIs, traffic accidents, the bad intersections that we all know about. We have a lot of fatalities here at Douglas County trying to correct those problems. So I think we need those additional deputies in traffic, probably 2 to 3, and a traffic sergeant.
I feel that the Sheriff's Office is top-heavy with captains. And through attrition, I would like to eliminate 2 positions for captain and restructure them to lieutenant positions. This will provide a foundation for leadership advancement from sergeant to captain. This will also help build morale within the office by opening up lieutenant positions. Sergeants that have been stagnant for a while can move to a lieutenant position, and by them sergeants moving, it creates opportunities for the lower echelon to move into sergeant positions. And this would be for the deputies that are qualified and want to move to a sergeant position and not have the opportunity to do that.
Do I stand, do I sit? I just don't know. When I was a commissioner, the sheriff decided that he was going to move 4 lieutenants, as Dan described, and make them captains. I was left scratching my head and have long since believed that the organization needs to be looked at more strategically. To that end, what I would like to do is conduct an operational audit. An operational audit that would essentially examine the department's organizational structure and culture and determine what the appropriate staffing levels are with the goal to provide cost-effective public safety services to our community. I believe that the International City and County Managers Association is a group that is the right group to come in and objectively evaluate the organization and determine what are the appropriate staffing levels and what should be the structure of this organization. I know that when Captain Orr was here, that was when the change took place, and I don't know that there's really a lot of thought to it because there does seem to be a gap, if you will, in the command structure for this organization. So I don't have the definitive answer, but I'm certainly going to look to the experts that can come in and provide an objective evaluation and give us the right suggestions as to what this organization should look like.
Okay, thank you, Dave, and back to you, Dan. The grand jury indicated in its recent report that there was a morale problem, or there is a morale problem in the Sheriff's Department. What do you think is the cause of that, and how would you deal with that? What would you plan for?
In every agency, whether it's law enforcement or a business, there's ups and downs that happen from time to time. And whether or not there is a morale problem or isn't is depending on who you talk to and their perspective. I agree with the grand jury's report, and I applaud those men and women that served on that and the service that they did to the county. I agree with their recommendations for training, for mentoring, and those types of things. And I think that we are striving to do that every day at the Sheriff's Office. One of the things that I would do, and I have done as a supervisor and as a captain, is to create an environment that every employee knows that they're valued, know that they make a difference, know that I have confidence in them, that they will do what's right, and that I trust them. Create an environment where they feel that there's opportunities to learn and to grow. And that's sometimes hard in a small department where movement is limited just by the numbers. But every person that works for the Sheriff's Office brings something to the table. We do an extensive hiring process, and so these men and women are the best that we can find. And they are our biggest investment and our biggest asset. And they need to know that I care for them and that I want them to be successful. And so that, I think, is the answer. And then it's up to them to prove me wrong or to see how high they can go. I believe in these guys. They're great. I received their endorsement, overwhelmingly 78%, so I think that's their vote for me, their confidence that they have in me also.
So the grand jury report polled 5 officers from this agency, 5. We have 107 sworn officers in the sheriff now. In every organization, whether it be private or government, you're going to have your people that are happy and there are people that are unhappy. And I have always been the type of person to set the example. I have never asked somebody to do something that I have not personally done myself. I have garnered about $100,000 from residents of the Lake Tahoe to donate to our canine unit. That added 2 additional dogs to our department. That gave 2 opportunities to 2 deputies that weren't there before. Through the help of our honor guard team, we actually raised $15,000 to be able to send our honor guard, our entire honor guard, to Washington, D.C. here next week for the Peace Officer Law Memorial for fallen law enforcement officers. I went out and personally went to Meeks Hardware, Ace Hardware, a Halloween store up north, and got supplies for free to build that. So those officers are all get to go to represent us there, and I'm very proud of that. I always praise my officers when they do well. I give them commendations. Their evaluations reflect that. However, the ones that don't do well, I have to hold them as a manager responsible. The ones that are not doing their jobs need to be dealt with, and that's never popular when you're a manager, and I don't enjoy doing that. But as a manager, I have to be fair and consistent and treat everybody equally, and there's just those that some underperform, they have to be dealt with. I don't like doing it. And some are my friends, and I still have to do it, and believe me, I don't enjoy it. But we're all taxpayers here. We have to be good stewards of our money, and the evaluations they get have to be earned. And just because I'm their friends, I'm not going to give them stellar evaluations because they're not doing their jobs. Because then I'd be a hypocrite and not do my job as a manager.
Joe, keep you for a second, follow up. You mentioned the grand jury report. Why don't you address the performance standards and the quotas that were talked about in the grand jury report?
Sure. So the grand jury report, if you read it, dispelled the myth that there was a ticket quota. I have told all my officers that your ability to write or not write a ticket is totally discretionary. There is no ticket quota. I noticed the grand jury said that there was a quota of like 16. You will not find a shred of paper or a written order or a verbal order from me ever issuing any such order. And again, citations is one area of performance that we measure as law enforcement officers. Other things are calls for service, your reports written, your business checks, your time on duty, your on-view time, which is driving around and basically unallocated time. A patrol deputy works 600 minutes in a shift. I had some officers with 400 minutes of unallocated time. And I don't know about you, but I don't want somebody that's underperforming working in my neighborhood when there's burglars out at night or down in the industrial way where we have our cars being worked on, they're getting broken into. I want my officers, just like I did when I was a canine handler, out there aggressively looking for bad guys. So the performance measures you hear about, Our tickets are just one measurable performance, like a spoke of wheels. That's one spoke on a wheel of other spokes. Arrests are measured, the FIs are measured. FIs are very, very crucial because those went up from about 200 when I took over in 2015 to 800. Those are the gang members that are walking around Lambie Park. Those are suspicious people that are out at night that are acting weird. These are people that are potentially dangerous people that the officers are contacting, and I'm very proud that those went up. And also, I'd like to say that the crime rate in Douglas County has gone down since I've taken over the patrol division, which I'm very proud of.
The citations did double from one year to the next, and now they're back down to an average of 3,300.
That's right. So that year that they doubled, we have a grant called the Joining Forces Grant, and that is a federally paid grant for our officers. And that grant was received, I don't know, probably 4 years ago. The year that the citations went up, we got a tremendous amount of money for overtime for our officers. This is in addition to the regular traffic duties that they work. The Joining Forces Grant actually requires the officers to make 2 stops an hour. Not 2 tickets, but 2 stops. So every hour they have to contact at least 2 people to meet the requirements of that grant. So because we received so much money that year, we had a tremendous amount of people working that on overtime, and of course our tickets went up. But again, so did everything else. Our arrests, our field interviews, our reports taken, our calls for service, and our crime rate dropped.
Okay, do you remember the question, Dean? Thank you, Joe.
Yes, thank you.
The problem as identified by the grand jury report was the way the performance standards were addressed and displayed for all to see. The leadership recognized low performance deputies and highlighted in red and placed in view for all to see. This measurement of standards, as indicated by the grand jury, was inherited by Captain Duffy. What I want to know is, who started this measurement? I would ask the other leaders, why did they not step in and say something? Or even think that it was okay to highlight substandard performers and embarrass that person. I would have the leadership work and mentor with the substandard performers to help improve in the areas they are lacking performance. If the leadership is busy, I will step in and mentor that individual that might be struggling. I would evaluate the current standards on how they are measured and propose changes to the deputies, and all will have a voice in the standards in which they are measured upon.
Do I stand or I sit? What do you want? I know a little bit about this because I'm the one who filed the complaint. And let's be clear on what the grand jury's findings were. First and foremost, they realized a year-over-year increase between 15 and 16, not double, 65% increase in the number of citations written by the Sheriff's Department. They also found that this created a morale problem amongst the staff in the patrol division. And it also found that additionally the deputies felt that discretion was taken away since meeting or exceeding the averages was always a concern. Additionally, their findings were that morale has declined and early retirement or a new place to work has become much more appealing. Quite a few deputies have left Douglas County in the past 2 years. This trend is alarming. It's about 25. The grand jury realized this is an upfront expense and time to train new deputies. Losing seasoned dedicated deputies to other counties or municipalities because of low morale benefits and because of low morale benefits and lower than average regional wages is not acceptable. That was the finding of the grand jury. They may not have gone so far as to say this is a ticket quota system, but those of us in law enforcement know what it was. And just because the sheriff and the undersheriff being interviewed said, no, it's not a ticket quota system, doesn't mean that that's the case. And I think that you do research on this, and there's white papers out there that talk about how ticket quotas negatively impact police morale and public trust. And one of the comments is placing a monthly ticket quota on an officer is counterproductive, and it's usually done because the leadership doesn't have the ability to inspire their officers to be productive. So where do we go from here? I think that Dan, once again, keeps reading my notes all the way over here. I think that we start by, Colin Powell had a phrase, lead by listening. I want to listen to the employees and ask them exactly what they see that's working, what's not working, and how they see themselves within this organization. The employees want to be empowered, they want to be heard, and I think the best opportunity is to conduct a climate survey, which would be independent and provide objective evaluation of the situation and condition.
Very good, and just, we're about a little over halfway through, and we're about halfway through the questions. You take the full 2 minutes, you're entitled to do that. If you can answer quickly or faster, I'm more than welcome to. What are your plans for dealing with the opioid? I must have taken some. Epidemic that has hit Nevada and is likely related to the increased crime in Douglas County as well. Dan. Let's hear. You heard me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes. So, one of the scariest things that can come into our community is the opioid epidemic. When I first started as a patrol deputy, we knew one family that used heroin consistently. They had to go to Reno to purchase it. Now our narcotics detectives, our SET team, buys heroin almost weekly here in Douglas County. Fentanyl, which is a synthetic form of heroin that's made in a chemical lab, it's produced mostly in China and then shipped into the United States via Canada and Mexico, is super dangerous. An amount as small as a pinhead is enough to kill a human being. They make it into pill forms, they cut it and mix it with heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine. You can order fentanyl via the dark web over the internet, and it will be delivered to your home. So how do we prevent this, or how do we mitigate this, and how do we keep ourselves above the problem? I think you do it in 3 ways. One, you attack it with law enforcement by apprehending and catching the people that are using, trafficking, selling the drug. The other thing that you have to do is you have to be a collaborative effort with other stakeholders in the community, mental health, hospitals, social services, all right, to prevent and to get people that are addicted to opiates off of that, find them some relief. And then the third thing that you have to do is education. And if we can prevent someone from even trying heroin or understanding the risks of prescription opioids, then we can slow things down. So you've got to take a 3-pronged approach. You have to be aggressive with it, and you have to stay on it all of the time, otherwise it will consume you.
So just like Dan said, the fentanyl is very, very dangerous stuff. And we're on the cusp right now as a sheriff's office about to issue out what's called naloxone or Narcan. It's a little vial that is a powder substance that you spray into the nose of somebody that's taken an overdose, which doesn't take very much. It's like a grain of sand. And that's enough to kill you. So when our officers, unfortunately, are out there doing searches of cars, a semi-truck could go by, and there may be fentanyl inside there, and now it's brushed up in the air, and now we have an officer that's in a life-threatening situation. So each deputy will be carrying this on their person, will be trained to administer that. We'll also be trained to administer to a kid or an adult or somebody in the private community that does overdose on it, if we happen to meet the paramedics there. So this stuff is coming, it's dangerous, and that's one thing we're doing for the DCSO to try to combat that. The other tool that we do, and this is the only preventative tool that we have in the Sheriff's Office, is the DARE and the GREAT program. Some of you guys know my wife, Teresa, runs the DARE and the GREAT program. That's the anti-drug, the anti-gang program for the 5th graders, the 6th graders, and the 7th graders. There's a lot of stuff out there that we're dealing with now that none of us had to deal with when we were growing up, like energy drinks, vaping. These are all horrible things that do horrible things to our organs, and because the parents are uneducated, there's nobody teaching our youth all this stuff that's coming at them like a steam train. Because every time I turn around, there's some scientist out there making some new and crazy drug before the FDA can make this stuff illegal. So it's crucial that we have that component to teach our kids to stop them from trying this stuff to begin with, because I'll be honest with you, a lot of these people that become addicted to heroin don't get sober. They end up dying. And I have personal stories that I've dealt with in the law enforcement capacity that I'm in, that I just don't see a high success rate of people recovering from heroin abuse, unfortunately. It's a very, very addictive drug. So we need to teach our kids the dangers of these drugs. And it's not just fentanyl and heroin, it's those other drugs I spoke of as well.
A few months ago, I attended a law enforcement summit where all the police chiefs, the sheriffs, and the attorney general from the state of Nevada attended. Opiate epidemic is a national problem, not just in Nevada, but it's national. First, I would want to ensure that all the deputies receive the best and up-to-date training on how to address the situation. Second, the people of Douglas County need to receive some form of education on this epidemic so they can educate themselves, their children, and also have the ability to recognize the signs of use. Third, ask for additional funding or grants to expand the SET team and use crime mapping, crime analysis, and intelligent-led policing, concentrating on the areas of concern. It kind of works like the broken windows theory. You start with small petty crimes, you take care of them so they don't lead to bigger crimes.
I don't know if it's an advantage or disadvantage that I go last because everybody's answered the question. I know that in February of 2014, the opinion section of the Record Courier had a headline that said our valley has a drug problem, and that continues today, and it certainly is with the opioid addiction. Many of the ideas have already been suggested here, and I think first and foremost we need to define the scope of the problem, look at trendline data, look at our arrests and incarcerations, and see how we're doing relative to our efforts to deal with this dilemma. We need to work collaboratively with the state and local agencies. This is not a county border issue. It's all over. It's paramount within our communities, no matter where we are. And work with social services as well. I know that HIPAA laws prevent us from providing additional information in certain situations. But we also need to implement effective public education and awareness campaigns, like Dan said, ensure that the schools and the communities implement effective preventive initiatives, and reduce availability and access to opioids. I think that's part of what's taking place already, when they're trying to watch drug monitoring programs, and we certainly have a prescription take-back program here in Douglas County, which is an excellent start. We need to, like they said here, equip first responders with Narcan nasal spray, increase our training on addiction care, and promote the use of medication-assisted treatment. This is an issue that won't go away, and it's going to take a combined effort of this entire community to address it.
Funny you should mention the order of answers. I was just going to reverse it. So keep the microphone. Do you believe that the sheriff's officers receive adequate training? And explain your answer, yes or no.
I think in law enforcement today, you cannot receive enough training. What I did was I went back and I looked at the budget for the Sheriff's Department, and it's pretty difficult to really define how much of the budget is being earmarked for training. I think for the sake of transparency, that is something that I would like to see as sheriff, is that we identify what % of our budget on an annual basis is used for training. I know that Nevada Post requires 12 hours of training on firearms, arrest control, lethal weapon, and the use of force, with an additional 12 hours for other training as deemed necessary by the administration. I know that when I worked in the police department, in the time that I was there, I had about 33 additional hours on an annual basis, above and beyond the 24 hours that were provided in-house. So I think we could probably do better. I don't have the exact number or the answer to what our training standards are right now. I know that when there are budgets that get tight, the first thing to go is training, and that's something that we can't afford in today's environment by any means. I think the biggest issue that we have to work on in terms of training currently is use of the body cams. I know that they have to develop policies and procedures, and the deputies need to be trained on how to use these things, when to use them, and how to use them. So there never is enough training, and I think that in my administration, training would become a top priority.
I do feel they receive adequate training when it comes to firearms training. But I would like to implement more scenario-based training, including the use of paintballs and simulations. This type of training will allow the deputy to experience the emotional and physical effects of being shot at, without being actually injured. Additionally, being a non-lethal weapon instructor myself, there are various ways to use non-lethal means. Again, it comes down to training and ensuring that the deputies can demonstrate proper techniques, from handcuffing, defensive tactics, use of OC, and deploying the taser. These are all diminishing skills, and I feel that conducting yearly refresher training will ensure that the deputies are using the proper techniques as to protect the deputy and innocent bystanders. Another is a certification for the use of speed measuring devices, also known as radar. When someone is certified, it's a one-time deal. But as technology allows training, it's important to know that the information is being passed down to the users. And by instituting yearly refresher training, the deputy remains proficient in the use of radar and is up to date with the advancements in technology and any new laws or case laws.
So I'm very proud and pleased to say our deputies are very, very well trained. And that's evidenced by our low crime rate and our lack of being sued in the newspaper. You don't see scandals in the media about Douglas County. We are very highly trained. And all the reasons that Dave Brady talked about is true. We do have to have those mandated post hours that the state of Nevada requires. In addition to that, we get about $23,000 a year for our training budget. That's not a lot. Carson City, in comparison, gets $80,000. We just raised it through the county commission about $13,000. Most of our training, we found, is very, very expensive because we spend money not on the registration costs, but to house somebody and for the per diem and the travel costs are very, very expensive. So what we've been doing this last year is we bring very well-renowned trainers through the FBI Academy to Douglas County. So instead of sending 2 or 3 guys, it's going to cost us $2 grand. We bring one person in that's cost us $2 grand, and we train 3/4 of our department in one shot. So that's the new technique we're starting to do. If you guys don't know, we have the Virtua system that I was instrumental in helping them to acquire with the Sheriff's Advisory Council back in, I think it was 2011. Costs about $250,000, and it's a use of force virtual simulator that simulates very violent encounters, and it teaches the officers they don't always have to use their firearms. They can use their taser, PR-24, their verbal skills, and things like that. Some of you guys, I know, have gotten to go through it. It's very, very useful, and it's not just shooting paper targets with bullets, because you can't simulate the stuff that is in the simulator out on the range. But I'm very proud of the deputies and the training that they have. Would I like to have more training? Absolutely. But we're limited on cost, and we do the best we can. But I can assure you, your sheriff's department is very highly trained, and I'm very proud of them.
Well, Dave, I know exactly what you mean. So I agree with the 3 gentlemen that spoke before me. I think that obviously training is critical. The things that officers are asked to do on a daily basis cover a slew of talents and things. We're asked to be mental health experts, we're asked to be counselors, we're asked to be EMTs at times, and that all takes training and knowledge. And so education, as soon as you say you've got enough education, I think you've sunk yourself. So training is absolute paramount. And like Joe discussed, we're thinking as a department of coming up with new, more efficient, economical ways to bring training to the department so that we can ensure or do the best that we can to ensure that our officers receive the best training that is out there. Training, it's evolved. Every month there's new things coming out, new technology, new laws that are put into place, and things like that. We have to keep up with it. One of the things that Joe kind of touched on, but I think it's we're very proud of as a member of the Sheriff's Office, is that we send officers out to become trainers, and then they come back to the department and train the rest of us. That's cheaper than sending all of the deputies to the same training, and so we have a lot of people that are instructed. And we go out to other agencies and train them. We've gone to Humboldt County, taught them an active shooter. We train at the Post Academy. And so not only do we train our own officers, but we are asked to go to other departments and train them. So I agree with Joe, we're very well trained, we're doing the best we can, and I think we're doing a very good job with the resources that we have.
All right, why don't you keep the mic, we'll do it today this time. What would you do to better secure our schools?
School safety is obviously it's a hugely important topic. It is also, a very complex topic. The easiest thing to do would to make our schools one point of entry, lock them down, concertina wire, and it's like a military base. And the kids would be safe there. The amount of money and the cost to each school district to do that makes that prohibitive. As schools going forward in the future, as schools are designed, you will see a difference in the design and architecture that is entirely based on school safety and limiting the access by people that shouldn't be there. So what do we do now with the schools that we have now? Douglas High School, when I went to there, is about the same, except that there's more buildings that are unattached to the original structure. And so students go from one building to the next, and there's exposure there. And so how do we make Douglas High School better? One, we have a uniformed armed law enforcement officer, a school resource officer there. We train with the school district annually on active shooter and things that have changed as the active shooter scenario changes, because it evolves. And there's a guy right now trying to figure out a better way to get into a school and kill children. And so we have to be ahead of that. So you have to work with the school district, you have to train, and you have to, as a collaborative effort, come to the best solution that is accepted by the community that you live in, that will help make the schools as safe as they are. But it is a top priority, and it's something that we think about and discuss often.
So about a year ago, Deputy Meyer, who's one of the school resource officers that works here, and I got with the superintendent, Terry White, and we installed Knox boxes in all 12 Douglas schools. So if you don't know what a Knox box is, it's a box that the fire department uses that has keys in it to get into the school in case of a fire. Ours are hidden in surreptitious spots that we can approach, that we're not going to be right up in front of windows and get shot, that we can access any part of the school at any time with these keys or in this Knox box. Each deputy has a key on their key ring that I issued out, that we now have the ability to go in and because a lot of these schools do lock down when school starts, so we can get in and take care of business if we need to. So that's one thing we've already done. As Dan said, we already are training in the schools with our school teachers, our students. We use them as role players. That's very important. But I tell people it's not just the schools that we need to worry about, it's everybody. What would happen if somebody pulled out a gun and started shooting in here? Because I can tell you, having been in a shooting, there is no warning to when these things happen. So I tell people you have to have a plan. I would like to set up training free to the community, that we have the resources now to train our citizens what to do when a shooting happens in Walmart, what to do when a shooting happens in the theater. Because you have to have a plan. The time to have a plan is not when you're getting shot at, I can tell you that. The plan is you need to hide, run, or fight, and not in that order. But you have to have a plan. If you carry a weapon, you need to train with it. It doesn't do anybody any good to carry a gun. And I support everybody having a CCW, but shooting is a perishable skill and you have to be prepared for it. So I would keep training. I would like to do more training in our schools and train the citizens, because some of us are parents in here, we don't know what to do. And I want to be the person to tell you, this is what we need to do. We need to think about this stuff when you're out at Walmart, when you're in a crowded place like here. What are you going to do? That's very, very important. So we can offer that training for free.
I would recommend going back to closed campuses. One way in, one way out, like Dan mentioned. I would ask the school board to place a metal detector at the entrance, that all backpacks be visually inspected. Yes, it is an inconvenience, but the safety of our children are the priority. I would recommend to the school board to shy away from arming school teachers and look at hiring armed security guards. Douglas County has a lot of military personnel, a lot of prior military or law enforcement that would make great candidates. Additional school resources officers are great, but it comes at a cost. There are currently 2, and the new one is on the way and just been approved. educating the parents and the teachers on recognizing the signs and indicators that a child may be experiencing that could lead to harmful actions. I would also like to see a training program to teach parents and teachers the issues that bullying at school and on social media can cause children. I would like to see more intervention and discipline when it comes to bullying.
One of the things that I'm most proud of is that when I was president of the school board, I initiated the school resource officer program and had to fight like heck with the superintendent who believed at the time that uniformed deputies in the school was not appropriate. And I think I've seen that program grow and develop, and we have some excellent school resource officers in the field today. I think adding an additional resource officer is excellent. That gives us 3. You still have Darren grade deputies that are actually in the school, so you have a presence of 5 deputies at any given time in the school. One of the things that I think would be a low-cost, high-impact is direct area patrol cars to spend some time in the schools. I would say that if one of the deputies has a child at Minden Elementary School, go have lunch with them. Create some presence. Park your car in the front of the school if you have to write reports. I think there are creative ways that we can create more presence in the schools rather than arming teachers. I'm not for that. Their job is to teach, our job is to provide public safety. So to that end, I think that we can find some creative ways and continue to fight for grants. I think that there will be more money coming down the pipe from Homeland Security and the likes in light of the recent situations that have happened across the country.
Keep the mic, Dave, and Joe, we started about 5 minutes late. Can we go about 5 minutes long? Okay, and we'll cut Jim Weaver short. Question from the audience, and I'll add a little bit to it, which is, the question from the audience is, how do you suggest training officers to avoid racial, ethnic profiling, and I'll add, or accusation? Go ahead, Dave.
What was the last part?
Or accusation of racial profiling.
Well, it's a different world from when I started in the industry. I think there's a need for sensitivity training and cultural diversity training that wasn't something that was part of the equation back in the early 70s or early 80s. Again, it boils down to additional training, and considering what we see in the nation today with the Me Too movements and the like, there has to be a certain sensitivity to the different beliefs and the attitudes of people across the country. So it really boils down to additional training, and it's unfortunate that we see the situations that we do across the country. Sides are being taken to the extremes, and it's very unfortunate.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. How would you deal with the, how would you train officers to deal with profiling, ethnic or racial profiling?
Not to take any of Dave's thunder, but even in the military, there was racial profiling. As military police, we had to deal with it. It's a very hard topic to actually figure out a way to solve that problem. The best way is education. Educate the officers, the deputies, anyone in law enforcement, just giving them their education, the training. If one of them is out of line, they need to be corrected on the spot, either a counseling, a reprimand, hold them accountable. But in turn, you still got to maintain that level of professionalism when addressing another person with different ethnicity. It is important to know that all people are created equal. It doesn't matter where we come from. It doesn't matter our skin color. We should all treat everyone the same as well as we should be treated.
So as a patrol captain for the last 2.5 years, I receive all the complaints that come through for the patrol division, and I can tell you I've not seen one complaint on racial profiling. If I did get a complaint, we have a professional standards units, internal affairs, that we would put that person through and we find out the facts of the case. I can tell you that we just did a recent training, Trends in Law Enforcement, one of those big bang for our bucks. We paid about $2,000 for a very top-notch instructor to come out and teach from the FBI National Academy, and one of the topics was racial profiling. So we already currently train our officers on that. I know it's taught that at the Post Academy in Carson. So we're already ahead of that, and I'm very happy to say that. And I would tell you if we've gotten complaints. I have not received one complaint on racial profiling here in Douglas County. And I do get complaints, but it's not for racial profiling. We handle all complaints equally. We look into them and we investigate them and we close them out. If an officer is found to have done something wrong, they're disciplined for it. Just depends on the severity of what happens. But unfortunately, I've had to, like I've talked about before, discipline some of my officers. It's not fun to do, but it's part of my job as a manager. So we are already on top of that, and I can just tell you truthfully that I've not received any such complaints, at least the last 2.5 years that I've worked in the patrol division.
Like Joe just pointed out, one of my duties as the admin captain is I'm in charge of our professional standards units. So I oversee all of our internal affair investigations. I've been doing that for the last 3 years. We have not had any complaints of racial profiling, and that is because it is not tolerated and absolutely not encouraged or endorsed in any shape or fashion. Our officers that work for us come from all walks of life, all racial backgrounds. We have African American officers, we have American Indian officers, we have Latino and Hispanic officers. We have an officer from Poland. And when you hear him on the radio, you know he's from Poland. I can't understand him. So our men and women that work for us mirror the community that we police, and they do a great job. And so that is not an issue in Douglas County, and nor will it be in the future if I'm elected sheriff. That cannot be tolerated.
Okay, and if that's all the questions, I'm going to invite, with Joe's permission again, each of you to give a 1 minute, 90-second closing statement. Once somebody should go ahead, man.
Again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I really appreciate your participation and taking time out of your busy schedules to come and listen to us and to learn more about us. There's no way in this limited time frame that you can know everything about me. I will tell you that I love Douglas County. I love working for the Sheriff's Office, and this is where I've chosen to raise my family, and that speaks volume. My family is the most important thing in my life. I can't think of a better place to raise them than Douglas County. If elected sheriff, my top priority will be to keep this the wonderful community that it is. And I would encourage each one of you to contact someone that you know in the community that works for the Sheriff's Office or knows someone that works for the Sheriff's Office and ask them who they think you should vote for. At the very least, please vote. It's how our nation was founded, and it's what keeps us free and living in a beautiful place. So please vote. Please vote for me.
So one thing I want to touch on real quick is the position of undersheriff. I would argue that the position of undersheriff is equally as important as the sheriff. They are the person that runs the sheriff's department. And I've selected Captain Jim Halsey for that position. If you guys don't know Jim Halsey, he's in the back. Raise your hand, Jim. He's the captain of our jail division. Jim is also a veteran of the Navy, a CB, 30-year veteran, and done 2 deployments to Iraq. He's also a veteran of the LA County Sheriff's Department, although I didn't know him when I worked there. We met each other here. But together, we have a combined years of experience of 58 years. Nobody else has that experience or training. And I think that that combination, you're not going to get a better team to run the Sheriff's Department and make sure that Douglas County stays the safe place it is. It's no mystery that you don't see tagging and gang graffiti on the walls. Sheriff Perini has given us a lot of latitude to hammer these gangbangers and keep them out of our community. And as a gang expert, the gang expertise I got from LA County, I assure you that they will not come to our area because they are at our doorstep in Carson, Sparks, and Reno. Make no mistake, they are coming, and you need to have the correct person in place with that expertise, a team of Jim Halsey and I, to keep that from happening here, because I want to keep this place the same beautiful place I found it 25 years ago when I came here on vacation. So I ask for your endorsement, I ask for your vote on June 12th. Please go out and vote for me. You can go to my website, joeduffyforsheriff.com, and check my credentials and fact check the things that I told you. I promise you, I will not let you down as your sheriff. Thank you.
Throughout my career in the Marine Corps and Marine Corps law enforcement, I've gained the knowledge, leadership, and experience to manage and lead a sheriff's office. I have led Marines in combat and managed police departments. I have mentored over 100 Marines to help them in their progression in their careers. And I will help those who are not performing to standards. I'm a bottom-up leader and believe in empowering your juniors and allow them to do great things. As your next sheriff, I'll serve Douglas County with the same honor and commitment that I gave the Marine Corps for 20 years. My morals, my leadership, my ethics, and my dedication has never been questioned. With these core values, I am the best option for sheriff. I have one quality that none of the other candidates have. I have ran a police department. As a police executive for the Marine Corps bases Okinawa Northern District and at the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center in Bridgeport. I am the best and qualified choice as your next sheriff. To learn more, please visit my website at ParisForSheriff.com, and don't forget to vote for Dean Paris on June 12th.
Yes, we're standing. No doubt, this is probably one of the most important decisions and votes you will make in the years to come, that being the selection of your sheriff. And I would ask that you, and I think the fact that you're here is extremely complimentary to the fact that you are trying to seek out information and seek out who the best client is, or excuse me, who the best candidate is. But my word to others is do your homework. And I think it's important that we look at the position of sheriff through a different lens. We have to look at that position as someone who is going to be the chief executive officer of one of the largest departments in the county with the largest budgets. I think it calls upon us to focus on questioning each candidate's education, leadership experience, executive level management experience. That's a key, executive level management experience, financial expertise, political proficiency. This is going to be key when you're managing the largest budget in Douglas County and have to deal with the wonderful commissioners that we have. Check their law enforcement history. I think it's important to note that I have a rather extensive law enforcement background, all street level experience, but at the same time I have executive level experience, having worked in the school, with the school board, the county commission, and working in the private sector with Fortune 500 companies and managing money for 30 years. I really appreciate your opportunity to consider myself as your candidate for sheriff. I appreciate the fact that you're all here, and please vote June 12th for me. Or early voting, I'll even let you do that. Vote anywhere in the county. So if you want to vote early, you can do that starting May 26th. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, everybody hold their applause until each candidate is finished. No. Actually, I think they deserve another round of applause. I think you guys did great. You are now excused.